Apple just announced what it calls Apple Intelligence. So, for the last 2 years, Apple's kind of been sitting on the sidelines and everyone's been waiting. What is Apple going to do in AI? Are they going to change how we work, or is it just going to be a big nothing burger? So, we're going to be talking about that today and more on Everyday AI, going over Apple's AI announcements, the good, the bad, and what absolutely no one is talking about. I'm excited for today's episode. What's going on, y'all? My name is Jordan Wilson. I'm the host, and Everyday AI is for you. It is your daily live stream podcast and free daily newsletter, helping you make sense of everything that's going on in the world of AI. So, if you didn't know, yeah, Apple finally, in probably one of the most highly anticipated tech announcements, I don't know, of the last decade or so, Apple finally unveiled the wraps on Apple Intelligence, its new AI offering for iPhone, for MacBooks, and a lot more. So, extremely excited to talk about that in today's episode. So, if you're joining us from the podcast, thank you. As always, make sure to check out your show notes for more on today's show and also a link, and go to youreverydayai.com. Sign up for the free daily newsletter. We will be recapping today's show, what's going on in AI news today, and a whole lot more. So, let's start with that. What is going on in AI news today? So, we're going to go over the top stories. Number one, Meta wants to train its AI model on European data. So Meta, obviously the parent company to Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, and probably some other social media apps I don't use, wants to use data from European users to train its AI language models. So this has raised concern about data privacy, with a Vienna-based group urging privacy watchdogs to intervene. Meta has stated that it will not use private messages or data from users under 18 and has given the option for users to opt out. So Meta believes that the training data on European data is important for accurate and culturally aware AI models. This updated privacy policy will go into effect on June 26th, and training for the next model will begin soon thereafter. Speaking of data and training, well, Microsoft Recall is changing how it functions. So, Microsoft, their new AI-powered recall feature, which they announced at their Microsoft Build conference, and it automatically just literally kind of records everything you do on your computer, and you can talk to it. But it's obviously faced criticism for privacy risks. So, in response, Microsoft makes some changes, such as making it opt in instead of opt out, and adding some additional encryption. Some commend the swift action, while others expressed disappointment. Microsoft plans to conduct further testing and review to address privacy and security concerns. Last but not least, on that security and privacy concerns issue, Elon Musk says he'll ban Apple devices. So, billionaire Elon Musk went on his social media platform and X'd, I think, what do we call tweeted? He put out an X post and warned of what he said are potential security risks from integrating OpenAI's artificial intelligence software with Apple devices, following a presentation by Apple announcing their plans to incorporate OpenAI's ChatGPT chatbot into the Siri's digital assistant. So Musk threatened to ban Apple devices from his companies if OpenAI is integrated at the operating system level. I don't know. I find it funny. So obviously Elon Musk has his X Grok AI chatbot that I don't know if anyone uses. And it seems like he doesn't want other people to be using OpenAI and ChatGPT. So sour grapes, I guess, pretty early on, right? It's like when you see something that's better than what you created, you're like, I don't want anyone using that. All right, but go log on to log on. Do people still log on? Go to youreverydayai.com. Sign up for the free daily newsletter for more on those news stories and a lot more. But let's get into today's topic, y'all. I'm excited for this one. So let's go over Apple's AI announcements at WWDC, their worldwide developer conference that just kicked off yesterday, but it's going to be happening all week. So we should be seeing some more news. But the big news was just the opening keynote saying, hey, Apple unveiled their Apple Intelligence. So we're going to be going over the good, the bad, and what literally no one is talking about. So let's start super high level. So Apple Intelligence is what Apple is calling this, right? Only Apple would try to actually rebrand AI and artificial intelligence and just say Apple Intelligence, which is funny because they said it like 60 times. I believe the official count was somewhere around 60. They said Apple Intelligence, but they very rarely said artificial intelligence, which I found interesting. They did say personal intelligence a lot. Some more on that later. And their slogan, I guess, was AI for the rest of us, which I have some thoughts on that, which we'll get to later. But let's first start with our take on all of this. It is Hot Take Tuesday. Every single Tuesday, we come with a hot take. Yeah, if you're new here, Mondays we go over the AI news that matters. Tuesday, we do a Hot Take Tuesday. And Wednesday through Friday, we usually bring on guest experts in interviews so you can learn from them. So our Hot Take Tuesday today, our hot take on Apple and their long-awaited AI announcements. Meh, that's kind of it. But I think Apple created a seemingly basic AI model that won't be that great. And we'll probably actually have to wait a long time to really use much of it or any of it. So more on that here in a minute, but let's go over first an overview of what's announced. And then we're going to go over really what I think are the 8 things that you need to know. And we're also going to go over the good, the bad, and what no one's talking about. So here's probably like the 8 bullet point overview. So if you only got a couple minutes, I'm not going to get mad if you leave after this. So here's the 8 things. Number 1, new AI model capabilities. Yeah, Apple actually released a new model and didn't even really mention it by name in their keynotes. Number 2, they have an AI image model in image generation. Number 3, they have actions that can happen with this Apple Intelligence. Number 4, an improved Siri, maybe. Number 5, personal context. 6, ChatGPT integration. Finally, it's been released, right? 7, semantic media. And 8, some AI functions in their main apps. All right. So let's go over 2 important pieces you need to know first. So it's kind of a vague release timeline. So, Apple generally has their WWDC conference in June, and then they say, September 15th or September 20th, we're going to be rolling all these things out. We got a little bit more of a vague timeline. So some of the things that Apple said, well, this is coming in fall. So whether that means September or December, I guess, is up to Apple. And then other things such as, some improvements in Siri, they said over the course of the next year. So yeah, are we going to be seeing these anytime soon? Not sure. However, Apple I think, has a much better track record than like Google, as an example, for actually shipping what they say they're going to ship. So if they say over the course of the next year, yeah, it might be a week or 2 before their next WWDC announcement, but I do assume that Apple will actually ship these things. And yeah, fall might end up being December and not September, but I do expect Apple has a much better track record than most of the other big tech companies on actually shipping what they say. So yeah, we might still be waiting for it. Also, there's a good chance you aren't even going to be able to use it. So, as an example, I like to put this out there. I use everything Apple, everything Mac. I'm a little bit of a fanboy, but I'm looking at all the Microsoft stuff and I'm like, okay, that's good. I like that. Hey, someone from Microsoft, send me a couple laptops or something, right? Anyways, you might not even be able to use all this stuff because you need an iPhone 15 Pro or higher to use most of this Apple Intelligence on your iPhone. Presumably, the new iPhones that will be announced next will also have compatibility. But I'm even recording this live stream video here on an Apple 12 or something like that. I don't know what number it is. But yeah, I'm sure the majority of people aren't going to have access to this. So, Apple is obviously hoping everyone sprints out of their door and goes to buy, iPhone 15 Pros or higher, or Pro Jumbos or Pro XLs. I don't actually know what they're called. Or on your computer. So come to MacBook as well. I think that's a little friendlier in terms of minimum requirements to ride this ride. So you do need a Mac M series chip or higher. So, the Intel Macs, those won't work. But if you have an M1, M2, M3, etc. chip, Apple Intelligence should work there. All right, let's start with the important stuff here, y'all. Number 1 is they have a new AI model, right? So it was interesting because Apple was kind of vague, and maybe that was intentionally so, but they were a little vague on what Apple Intelligence even is. Is it a model in and of itself? Not really. It seems like it's just this umbrella term for a bunch of stuff that's presumably going on under the hood, but no one was talking about this. They didn't mention this by name, during their presentations at the first day of WWDC. But yeah, there's an actual new model that they released that they just put on their machine learning blog by name, which is funny because at least, at 5 a.m. this morning, literally not a single other human being in the world had talked about it. All right. So at least, you're getting some breaking news here. Maybe by the time you're listening to this, someone else has talked about it. But essentially this, some of the stuff that's going under the hood, going on under the hood is new models called JAX. So, original reporting was it was going to be called Ajax like a year ago. So it is the JAX and XLA. That is kind of some of the background technology for this new model, right? People are like, okay, so is the GPT model running this entire thing? No, Apple has a base model running the majority of this Apple Intelligence JAX and XLA, and it is a 3 billion parameter on device model. Okay, so that's Edge AI. So much of what's going on locally, and we'll get to that here in a couple of minutes. But it is happening locally with this 3 billion parameter on device model, which is technically small, right? So if you compare it to GPT-4 Turbo, I believe is 1.8 trillion parameters, right? So a 3 billion parameter model is technically kind of small, right? If we were saying 5 years ago, you might say, oh, that's big. But, compared to state-of-the-art models, a 3 billion parameter model is pretty small, but it is just for limited scope for what this model is presumably actually performing under this Apple Intelligence umbrella. The number two thing you need to know about is AI image model and generation. So yes, part of this is a diffusion model that can create images in a variety of forms. Personally, to me, I don't know if I would ever use this, as someone, and I should put this, precursor out there, right? Myself and our team, we've been using the GPT technology since late 2020. So, coming up on almost 4 years now, and we've used literally hundreds of AI tools and, a handful of great AI image generators like, DALL-E and Midjourney, Stable Diffusion, etc. Right? When we look at this new Apple AI image model, I don't think I would ever use it. Apple is playing it safe, as Apple always does. I don't think you're going to run into any deep fake, issues here because you can't actually create realistic photos. Kind of the options, I believe, were illustration, sketch, etc. There was 3, but it's more of a cartoony thing. So, if you want to send, the example here that I'm sharing on the screen is, kind of showing like, oh, your mom is a superhero or something like that, but a cartoon one. So we'll get more into these features here in a little bit, but I don't know. To me personally, I'm not really going to be using that, but big piece. So here's what you need to know about the AI image model generation. So a diffusion model. They have a new app called Image Playground where you can create these apparently unlimited or until your phone runs out of space. They also have the Genmoji. Hey, everyone's losing their mind about AI powered emojis. I don't know. To me, don't care. Don't care at all. But yeah, you can use AI to make a custom emoji if you care about that. Also, they have an Image Wand app that turns your sketch into an image. I'd say if you're a student, that could be pretty cool, right? It's one of the examples here that they have. You can sketch something on your notes. Circle it if you're using like an iPad app, and then it'll turn it into an image. They also have cleanup tools, a cleanup tool for photos, which we've seen in Google Photos for a long time. You can circle someone if someone photobombed you, and it erases them. Natural language search inside of photo videos, which we're going to get to, and memory movies. So we're going to touch on those two things here in a couple of minutes. Next, which I say is probably one of the more I don't know if impactful is the right word necessarily, but probably a more beneficial feature here is actions, right? So that's essentially between Apple Intelligence and this new quote unquote smarter Siri, is we are going to see actions. So let's talk a little bit about what that means. So we're going to have cross app and in app actions. And you can just use this new, whether you're talking to the new and improved Siri or just this Apple Intelligence in general, is going to be able to perform very simple actions across Apple's built-in apps. Also, for third-party developers, presumably this will be rolling out soon via what they're calling app intents. So not like camping intents, like intent, but intents. So app intents allows third-party developers to provide similar functionality to presumably allow Siri and this Apple Intelligence to perform simple tasks on users' behalf. So that part's pretty cool, right? Also, it's kind of like the shortcuts, right? So Apple has had these shortcuts, but you kind of had to program them manually before. It's like, oh, when I start a workout on my watch, launch the activity, app on my iPhone or something like that, right? So you could program these shortcuts before, but now you can just use natural language and texting Siri. That's new as well. And essentially it can complete small actions across its apps, right? So if you are texting someone about dinner plans for next weekend, then you can just tell Siri, create that as a calendar, right? And then it'll do it for you. Yay. And it'll use all the information and all the context from that conversation. All right. Number 4, an improved Siri. Yay. Are we finally going to have a smart assistant? I got some takes for this at the end of the episode. We're going to play an example, but the example here that, Apple has on their website, it says, Siri, set an alarm for, oh, wait, no, set a timer for 10 minutes. Actually make that 5, right? So just more, natural language processing. Before Siri, Alexa, and just about all smart assistants, they've been very not smart for 13 years. Maybe it was a novel at first, but once large language models came out, you couldn't really use, right? So from 2022 to today, if you try to use Siri or Alexa, or I guess Google Assistant is improving as well, it's like permanent facepalm emoji. It's terrible. All of these smart assistants are terrible. So now, presumably, Siri's got to get a little smarter by using this base new large language model, and might tap into some future GPT-4o technologies, which we'll talk about here in a minute. So what you need to know about this apparently new and improved Siri. Yeah, I got some takes on that here in a minute, but better context, more natural language. So yeah, if you make a mistake, on-screen awareness, which I think that's pretty cool, right? So yeah, if you are, let's say, reading an email, and then you can say, ask Siri to look up something from what's on your screen, right? Or look up bullet point 2. Yeah, right. So yeah, I mean, pretty nice. I don't know. For me personally, I'm not always talking a lot to my computer or my phone. Maybe in the future we will be more, but at least having that kind of on-screen awareness, pretty good. Like we talked about, a new feature, being able to type to Siri. For me, not that great, but I can see how that would actually be useful for a lot of people, right? If you're, in work or in class or, in a crowded place, maybe you just don't want to seem like a weirdo, talking into your phone all the time, but you can just type to Siri. Also, like we talked about, Siri actions, being able to do these actions cross app in app, as well as app intent for third-party developers that Siri will be able to complete in-app actions for you. All right. Number 5, personal context. I think this is the big one. Essentially, all your data, right? Yeah. And you can opt out of this. Apple says you can opt out of this. And they have what's called a private cloud compute. So we're going to get to that, here in a couple of minutes. But more or less, I think this is an area that Apple has been the leader in, right? Privacy, which is huge, right? So I think Apple made a big play away from business, right? They weren't really talking a whole lot about this is going to help you do better at your job, grow your career. It wasn't a lot of that. This is more, it seemed like an AI app for your personal life, or, a new AI phone for your personal life. That's what it seemed like to me. Which, a lot of people are thinking about privacy, right? So let's say you're texting with your spouse, maybe about a medical condition. And, I don't know, do you want Siri to put that information into a calendar event? Do you want, Siri or Apple to just always be reading all that information? For me, I don't care. for me, take that data, right? I forget things hundreds of times a day, hundreds. So for me personally, I'm looking forward to this, right? I think for my personal life, a lot of this Apple Intelligence is going to be great. I don't care. Take all my data. Give me better retargeting, right? Like, I know that's not what Apple's doing, but I'm the same thing with anything. Google, take my data. YouTube, take my data. I got nothing to hide. Make my life easier, right? So Apple kind of going down that same route with this personal context, but with a huge lean on privacy, obviously, as Apple always has that heavy lean. Saying that your data is in this private cloud AI, saying your data is never stored, used only for your requests in verifiable privacy. All right. So essentially, what that means is it just knows everything, right? So you could be texting and it's going to know what's in your calendar. It's going to know your events. You can, talk to Siri and presumably it's going to know your life. I'm actually extremely excited about that part. Especially how I can apply that to business to, gain back things, little wins, right? I feel personally that's what Apple's going for here instead of huge product like business productivity, a 10-hour task that now you can do in 3 minutes. Now they're saying, it seems like, dozens of tasks that would take you 5 minutes are now going to take you 2 minutes, or, a task that would take you 45 seconds is now going to take you 4 or 5 seconds. So I'll take that. Not huge productivity gains. That's why I think the market reception, Apple stock went down yesterday after the announcement, because it's like, is this going to change how we do business, right? Because when you follow big companies, Microsoft, Nvidia, Amazon, right? All the other big companies, even Meta, right? They're changing how we do business. And, I think a lot of people were expecting something similar out of Apple, right? Is this going to impact how we work? And Apple, I really just didn't pay much attention to that, if I'm being honest. But this personal context, I think, is pretty huge. But like I said, Apple is marketing it as a security first focus and private cloud with opt out. All right. The big one here, Chat GPT integration. So a quote unquote direct integration with GPT-4o, OpenAI's newest model. So obviously, there's been a lot of reporting and a lot of confusion on what Apple is actually doing. So, we heard almost a year ago that Apple was spending millions of dollars each day trying to build its own internal large language model. And they obviously released some of the findings of their models via research papers. So, at that point, everyone's like, oh, okay, Apple is going to be going with its own model. But then you heard all these reports back and forth. OpenAI. Oh, no, now it's Google Gemini. Now it's Claude Anthropic. Oh, back to OpenAI. So yes, there is an official direct, quote unquote, direct integration with ChatGPT. So we'll talk about that more at the end when we go over the good, the bad, and what no one's talking about. But ChatGPT integration, where they're saying it's seamless, right? So kind of having that ability to use all of these ChatGPT features pretty much wherever you are. So, if you have a Mac and if you've been using their desktop app, it's similar to that. So it's bringing the power of this new GPT-4o model to your desktop. Not all the features though, right? Because there's a lot that in this new model that OpenAI has still not even announced yet. So presumably once OpenAI releases them to everyone, so all they've really released is the base model. Right. But OpenAI also talked about a lot of other things, kind of this live Omni, where, the desktop app can see everything in real time, with one click of the button, kind of this way more natural, voice, being able to have a live conversation back and forth. So, will Mac, iPhone, Siri be getting that next updated version of GPT-4o? Potentially, and we'll get to that here in a second. But the direct integration, it's like this, right? Because yes, this is confusing, and all the original reporting kind of ended up being true, because there was also reporting that said Apple is going to use both on-device AI or edge AI, as well as kind of cloud compute as well. So that's turns out to be the truth, right? So it first is going to use internal models to answer what it can, right? So we talked about that JAX internal model, the 3 billion parameters. So it's going to use what it can for that first. And then what it can't, it's going to send to a private cloud AI, which they did not release a ton of details on that. I don't know if that's still the JAX model or if that's the GPT model. So there's multiple tiers, which is a little confusing, but we'll get to that later. But essentially, when you need something more powerful than just what your personal data is, or if you want to kind of parlay your personal data with the real world or the outside, world, I believe, is something that was referred to is, well, then you're going to have to use this direct GPT-4 integration, 4.0 integration. So it's free, which is great. They didn't really reveal a lot of details, right? So like, as an example, if you are having ongoing conversations with the with the GPT 4.0 model, is it going to remember those things? Right? If you tell, if you're talking to Siri, and it needs to use ChatGPT 4.0 direct integration for something, is it going to remember that in context, or is it going to completely forget it as soon as you kind of close out? Right? Because presumably, the good thing with the edge AI is it's going to have this working memory, right? It's going to continually be able to remember things that are in all, your mail, your messages, your documents that maybe you store, on Apple's apps. But outside of that, is it going to remember things that it uses Chat GPT for? I don't know. All right. Number 7, we have semantic media. So we kind of talked about this with the, it kind of rolls over into the diffusion, the, AI images. But, the example that Apple has on their website is essentially, think you have probably thousands of photos and videos, on your iPhone or your Mac computer, and then just being able to search semantically. So the example they gave, presumably someone's taking a photo of their child here, and then they say Katie with stickers on her face, and then it returns all the photos of Katie. So at some point you've told it this is Katie, or you've identified, and then it can go through all your photos and say, all right, here's the photos of Katie with stickers on her face. Sorry, excuse me. Got some allergies kicking in here. But then semantic media. Here's what this actually means. Well, it's going to understand what's actually going on in your photos and videos, right? Which is great. Again, we've seen parts of this. Apple has had pieces of this, but kind of this, Apple Intelligence is presumably bringing it all together, connecting it a little better. And then also it can create custom memory movie based on your request. Nothing new here. Apple has had this. Google announced this as well. But, before they were just kind of auto-generated, it might say, 2 years ago on this day, if you took a bunch of pictures 2 years ago, and it would make you a little, photo montage. So now you can kind of request and say, oh, make me a montage of, that trip from Mexico from 2 years ago or something, or, all of the times I, was playing with a puppy outside, right? Like whatever. So you can just kind of do that with a request. And then last but not least, which I think is probably one of the better features here, is AI functions inside of Apple apps. So the example here, which I think is great, is summarizing notifications. So let's say you're someone, if you're in a meeting for an hour, my phone is literally on D&D almost every single day. I don't get any notifications because I hate them. But a lot of people, right? You're on a meeting, you look at your phone and you have 10 notifications, and then you have to waste time individually going in and seeing what all those applications are actually about. So what Apple Intelligence is presumably going to do, it's just going to kind of tell you. It's going to read your text, and it's going to say, hey, here's what this person texted you about. Here's what you need to know, your Slack messages, etc. It's going to give you a summarization, presumably either using the JAX model or GPT, and then it's just going to pop that up onto your home screen, right? So I think those are some of the best, I think, features inside of these Apple apps. So having your notifications summarized, right? So if you open your Apple Mail, you'll have the ability, instead of it showing the normal preview text, it'll show you a 2-line summary. That's good, right? You don't got to read through everything. And it's also going to use some AI to kind of prioritize things for you as well. So yeah, if a doctor appointment gets changed, or if a meeting gets rescheduled, that might be more important than, the group chat from the poker buddies, right? No disrespect to the poker group chat, but probably if a meeting gets rescheduled from 5 o'clock to 3 o'clock and it's 2 o'clock, Apple is presumably going to know and put that at the top of your notifications, so you know about that right away. All right, so that's a recap of what's new. Now let's go over the good, the bad, and the things that no one is talking about. All right. So here's the good. In typical Apple fashion, they made things shiny and sexy, nice UI, UX, right? Even just what I just talked about, using AI to summarize things, to prioritize your notifications, kind of these app actions. It's all really good, right? Is it anything new? Absolutely not. I should have started the show with this, but we got really nothing new or extremely exciting from Apple, right? It's just all stuff that we've had. Maybe it was in two different apps, maybe it was in 20 different apps. So now, I guess the nice part is you bundle it all up into Apple's nice user interface, right? The summarization and the GPT-4o writing tools, being able to access those anywhere. Again, we've had that. If you've used Chrome extensions like I have, you've already had that for years, right? And so, okay, cool. Now you get that inside of Apple's apps. Fine, not bad, right? And I do think you're going to get some baked in AI features that are going to replace some other popular apps. As an example, part of that, if you're writing an email inside Apple's mail program, you can click to make it longer, make it more informal, improve your grammar, right? So it's like, I don't know, if I'm Grammarly, I'm not super stoked at this Apple announcement, right? So I think that Apple's actually going to kill off the need for people to use some apps, right? Like some non-AI things is they have a passwords app now. Another one is the ability to record calls. Apple says it does record notify the other party, but then it can transcribe those calls, right? And then, voice notes, it can transcribe those. So yeah, all these things, again, all these AI capabilities that many of us have been using for many months or multiple years are now going to be just baked in features. So, for many people, right? This is going to be their first introduction to artificial intelligence, right? Because yeah, a lot of people just don't use AI, or they use it very limited in a very limited capacity. And then obviously the direct Chat GPT integration. All right, here's the bad, y'all. Here's the bad. There's model confusion here, right? Apple didn't even really announce ChatGPT or OpenAI until the very end. And if I'm being honest, it's a little confusing. Essentially, there's like 3.5 or 4 different tiers of models, right? So they have their kind of their own model, this Apple AI JAX XLA model, the 3 billion parameter that is on-device edge AI. So when that's happening, nothing is getting sent to a cloud, right? Or a third-party service. Then Apple says, hey, for some things, we are going to use private cloud AI. And it's like, okay, well, why? I guess what's the need for that tier? Again, a little confusing. Apple didn't do a good job of even saying, oh, we're using our own model for this, ChatGPT for that, right? So they have number one, on-device AI, the JAX 3 billion parameter. Number 2, a private cloud compute. Okay, when's that being used and why? Then number 3, you have this direct and free, right, which is great, free integration to GPT-4o, but only when you tell it to. So I'm like, okay. But then they also said in the future, you're also going to be able to use your paid version. So you can bring in paid features of a GPT-4o, right? Because yeah, a lot of these new features that haven't been released that we've kind of referenced, right? This Live Omni, or people call it Her, right? That's only available on the paid plan. Some of this more, natural language, these voices that they previewed that we don't have, that presumably Siri is going to get, because Siri's voice and also Siri's intelligence didn't seem to get much better, if I'm being honest, but maybe it will with these paid features. So again, confusing. It's almost like there's 3.5, 4 different tiers of AI models that are being used depending on the scenario, which I guess if most of it is happening under the hood, it's not a bad idea. But here's the thing. It's not all happening under the hood. And I think this is a bad thing, right? Because so much, I think, of what people want to use AI for, or what we've been using it previously, it's to interact with things on the internet, right? It's to be productive at work and in your job. And I mean, some of those things you'll be able to do on device, and you won't have to, quote unquote, have to use ChatGPT. But ChatGPT is a more powerful model, right? If I'm being honest, I think Apple missed the boat here. They should have just figured out a way to, similarly how Google Gemini has Gemma, which is a lightweight version of the Gemini model. I think obviously Apple would have been much better if they could have partnered with OpenAI to just create a lightweight version of GPT-4 that ran locally, right? So you're essentially working with multiple models that, technically speak multiple languages. So you're not going to be getting consistency, I think, when you're kind of working with these different AI assistants. And worse than that, some people said, okay, so is Apple Intelligence really just a wrapper, right? Is Apple just, you take off its hood and it's just Chat GPT underneath? Well, yeah, kind of. But is it really a direct integration? Because Apple showed this, because it essentially, if you ask Siri or if you ask this Apple Intelligence for something, and it's number one, if it doesn't know, which I'm guessing is going to be a lot of things, or if it's too powerful, if it requires more compute, whatever, it essentially gives you a message that says, do you want, literally, you get a pop-up that says, do you want to use Chat GPT to do that? And then you click cancel or use Chat GPT. So, I mean, is this a direct integration? It's like you're just launching an app in the background. So is Apple intelligent? It's really super intelligent? Did we really get AI, or did we just get kind of like a seamless shortcut to launch Chat GPT in the background? I don't know. Seems like a fail to me. That's me. So yeah, is Apple Intelligence just a wrapper? And also Siri. Let's talk about Siri, y'all. Yeah, I got some thoughts on Siri here. So is this advanced Siri and other Apple Intelligence features later this year? Right. So later this year. Okay. Does that mean 350 days from today? Does that mean by December 31st, 2024? Let's just go ahead. Let's go ahead. I actually have a bone to pick here, right? If I was Apple, I literally wouldn't have done this. All right, let's go ahead and listen. Speaking of Siri, and is Siri smarter now? Or is it only going to get smarter if you have the paid version of GPT-4o, right? Because Apple said that you can integrate the paid version later, right? So let me talk about this. Let me play this little 30-second clip from their presentation yesterday. Someone kind of going over here, talking about Siri. So let's go ahead and listen, and then let's break down the example.
And you can speak to Siri more naturally, thanks to richer language understanding capabilities. Even if I stumble over my words, Siri understands what I'm getting at. What does the weather look like for tomorrow at Muir Beach? Oh wait, I meant Muir Woods.
The forecast is calling for clear skies in the morning near Muir Woods National Monument.
Okay. Did you notice what didn't happen there? So, okay. Here was the query for Siri, right? What does the weather look like for tomorrow at Muir Beach, right? Guess what's y'all? When you ask, all right, I'm going to go on a small rant here. It's Hot Take Tuesday. This is a fail. What's the one thing you want to know when you ask for the weather? The temperature. Guess what Siri didn't say? The temperature. I don't know. If I'm Apple, I'm being very selective about the most polished version of Siri that you showcase. That, to me, if I'm doing that right now, I'm like, come on, Siri or Alexa or whatever. Is that a smarter Siri? I don't know. So I guess we'll find out, but I don't know. My hunch is saying, when they said, oh, some Siri improvements are going to be coming later this year, I think the only thing the only improvement in Siri initially is going to be, it's going to have access with this new internal Apple model to all of your data. So you can say, oh, catch me up on this text message, or who emailed me, right? So that might work better, but everything else that you're using Siri for, I don't know. It might still stink for the next year. They kind of hinted at, hey, more, more Siri improvements are coming over the next year. So maybe they are actually literally just waiting on, ChatGPT's OpenAI's GPT-4o, these new voice and natural language features, and it'll integrate directly with that, but only if you have a paid ChatGPT account. So Are we actually going to be getting a smarter Siri? And if so, when? And if so, is it going to require a paid ChatGPT account? I don't know. That demo to me was a ginormous failure. I would not have shown that. If I was in charge of Siri and I'm seeing this at the keynote, I'd be like, why did we do this? If you ask about the weather, yeah, you probably want to know, is it going to rain? Is it going to snow? And what's the temperature? How are you not going to say the temperature, right? Is it 95 or is it 45? That's not useful, smart assistant. Be smarter. Understand, right? Yeah, if there's natural language processing and natural conversations, if I ask someone who's, if my wife has the weather up on her phone and I say, hey, what's the weather look like? She's gonna say, oh yeah, it's either it's raining and it's cold, 50 degrees, or she's gonna say it is sunny, it's 90, right? Come on. This is simple stuff. Simple stuff, Apple. So, other things, there was a report today out of Mac Rumors that said a lot of these Apple Intelligence features are actually going to have a wait list during the initial limited preview. So, so presumably there's going to be, Apple always does beta versions. So even when the beta comes out, if you're a dork like me and you want to play around with these, some of these things might be waitlisted. For the general release, will they be waitlisted? I don't know, but there's a possibility that they could, right? One thing you got to give credit to Apple for, usually they have a great record of shipping things on time. They ship what they say, right? But at least kind of this, reporting today saying that there's going to be a waitlist feature for some of these Apple Intelligence. Again, that might just be during the beta preview. Not sure if that's going to be during the general release. All right, things that no one is talking about, y'all. All right. Their main thing, right? So if you go to the Apple Intelligence webpage, it says AI for the rest of us. What the frick does that even mean? AI for the rest of us? Is Apple an indie brand now? Like, are they against the man? What does that mean, Apple? I'm sorry, that's dumb. AI for the rest of us? Come on. You have billions of devices. The rest of us. Hey, guess what, Apple? Guess what? Knock, knock. The rest of us have all had access to AI for 2 to 4 years, and we've been using it everywhere, right? Literally everywhere. AI for the rest of us. Come on now. No amount of marketing you can pull over my eyes. And that is your main tagline, Apple? AI for the rest of us? Come on now. That's silly. That's silly. Who came up with that? All right. Here's the other thing that no one's talking about. This whole Siri thing doesn't really seem smarter. And it seems like it's not really going to get smarter for at least a year. So they didn't say, is it only going to get smarter with this improved GPT-4o that, the rest of us are waiting on for OpenAI? Is it actually a new model, or is it still old Siri that we've been using that kind of stinks and it just has access to our personal data, right? That's better than nothing. But are we actually going to get a truly smart assistant? And if we are, is it only reliant on OpenAI's technology? And if it is, do we have to have a paid account to use it, right? It's something that Apple traditionally doesn't do, is require a paid subscription. But they did very distinctly say that some of the paid features of ChatGPT you will be able to integrate with. All right, well, are we only going to get a smarter Siri if we have a $20 a month ChatGPT Plus account? Maybe. All right. Another thing that no one's talking about, this model confusion, right? Like I talked about at 5 a.m. this morning, I was reading the blog post on Apple's machine learning blog to learn more about this Apple AI. And I Googled it because I'm like, let me see what people are talking about. And literally no one is talking about it. At 5 a.m. this morning, there was not a single mention. There was not a single mention of this model anywhere on the internet, not on Twitter, not on a blog post, nowhere except there. No one's talking about this. This Apple Intelligence, it's this 3 billion parameter model. Yeah, Apple actually released their own model. They just didn't really say it. They just said, oh, it's called Apple Intelligence, right? But people think that's just marketing and software, but technically that includes a model that they created, right? People aren't talking about it or even mentioning it by name. The other thing, is this a real ChatGPT integration? I don't know. Doesn't seem like it. Seems like you're just running ChatGPT in the background. Doesn't seem like it's baked in, right? It's like, hey, Siri, do something for me. And Siri goes, oh, I can't. Do you want ChatGPT to do it instead? Is that an integration, right? Or is that just an underperforming model that's not very great? That then it just says, I can't do anything. Go have ChatGPT do it. Is Apple just a wrapper now? Are they just a wrapper company? Right? Great UI, UX, and all your data, but really to make great use of it, you just got to use ChatGPT anyways, right? Another things, it just seems like so many useless features. I don't want to create a cartoon version of someone and send it to them in a text message. I don't want to create an AI emoji. Why is Apple so gung ho on like, do they really think the majority of their customers, right? Yeah, it's probably fun for kids or for, grandmas or something like that. But I don't know, for people 20 to 60, do you really want to create an AI emoji? Do you really want to create a customized birthday image for someone? I don't know. It's weird. What's the use case? I don't know. It seems like Apple is really relying heavily that people are going to like cutesy AI stuff. Y'all, we've had enough of that. We're tired. We've had cutesy AI stuff. Apple, hey, while you were sleeping the past 2 years, we've had all this crap. It's gone. We don't care. We don't pay attention to it anymore. People want AI to improve their companies, to help them save time in their business so they can spend more time in the real world. And Apple's just like, AI emojis, have fun. Cartoon versions of your coworkers, send them to them. No, that's tone deaf, right? Apple, I think, missed a huge opportunity. It seems like they pretty much stayed away from business. They stayed away from enterprise. They stayed away from, work productivity, right? I mean, they kind of touched on it a little bit, but for the most part, this WWDC, this Apple Intelligence, presentations were just kind of based on your personal life, which is great. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of time to be won there, but like I said, OpenAI, Gemini, Amazon, Microsoft, they're saying, hey, here's how you can take a business task that takes 20 hours and do it in 2 minutes. That's great. Apple's saying, hey, this used to take you 10 seconds. Now it's going to take you 2 seconds. It's like, okay, that's fine. And here's stickers you can annoy your friends with. I don't care. I don't care. I don't know if it's just me, but yeah, I don't care. Just a huge lack of business focus. And I'm just wondering if Apple finally realized internally, after reportedly spending millions of dollars a day to make their own model, and then they just ended up using GPT-4 anyways, maybe they just came to an internal realization. They saw everything that Microsoft's been crushing it. They've been killing the game, like they're hunting Safari, right? To borrow a rap line there. Like maybe Apple just said, we can't compete with Microsoft. We're not going down this business route. We're going for personal productivity. Maybe that's what they're saying. Maybe that's what they're doing here. I don't know. Huge fail. Apple is the most cash happy company in the world. They have the most cash. They're Scrooge McDuck sitting on piles of cash, and they couldn't get this figured out. They had to rely on someone else. It's a huge loss. Just huge loss, Apple. And instead, they're like, oh, Apple Intelligence is going to help you create calendar events faster and summarize your emails. Y'all, we've had this. That is not the future of technology. Apple used to tell us and show us and give us the future. Instead, Apple said, here's what you've had for 2 to 5 years, just with some nice marketing, just with a nice user interface with your data. It's like, okay, that's fine. But this is a $3 trillion company. This is a company that is supposed to be leading the world in how we interact with technology in the future. And instead it said, here's, does anyone remember Now What I Call Music? Right? When it would, recap the best, or like Kids Bop, right? That's what this feels like from Apple. It's like, hey, here's all the things you've been enjoying over the last 2 years, but wrapped up in a nice little package in one CD, right? Fail. Huge failure on Apple's part. And I think eventually the stock price is going to reflect that, right? Apple is relying is relying on people wanting this, right? Wanting this Apple intelligence. But I think people are going to realize number one, well, just seems like it's kind of ChatGPT, number one. Number two, not everyone's going to rush out. Apple is, I think, their strategy here because it's only going to work on iPhone 15 Plus and above. So their thought is, oh, well, we're going to have hundreds of millions of people, waiting in line to go upgrade their phones. It's like, I don't know, maybe, but is that your strategy? Right? That's a temporary solution here. I personally see this isn't financial advice. I'm not a stock analyst, but number one, I did stay at a Holiday Inn Express once. And number two, I did tell you a year ago that NVIDIA was probably the most important company in the world and no one listened. I think Apple is gonna tank. Not tank, but right. I like they've always been company number one or company number two. I wouldn't be surprised at this time next year if Apple is the fourth biggest company and someone else has passed them, right? Whether it's Amazon, whether it's Meta, I don't know. I don't think Apple is going to be a top two company at this point next year. They're relying that everyone's just going to go buy new hardware to take advantage of all this. But Apple, I don't know if you've been literally sleeping in a lab for the last 2.5 years trying to catch up to Microsoft, to Google, to everyone else. We've had this. We're tired of this, actually, right? You are giving us Kids Bop. You are giving us Now 32. That's what I call hits. Don't care. Don't care. Am I going to use it? Yeah, I'm going to use it, right? Yeah, I'm not being hypocritical. I'm just being honest. But is this the Apple that we're used to? That changes how we use technology? That changes, how we connect with the world? Nope, it's not. All right, that's it, y'all. That is our Hot Take Tuesday. Apple's AI announcements, the good, the bad, and what no one's talking about. Hope you enjoyed this one. If you're listening on the podcast, appreciate your support. Make sure you check out the show notes. There's a link there. You don't even got to text Siri, right? Just check out the show notes. Go to our website, youreverydayai.com. Sign up for the free daily newsletter. We're going to be recapping AI news, fresh finds from across the web, the top AI software. We do this every single day, Monday through Friday. Bringing this to you live, unscripted, unedited. So if this was helpful, please leave us a review on Spotify, Apple, wherever you're listening. Share this with your friends, your coworkers. Tell someone who needs to know. Thank you for joining us. Hope to see you back tomorrow and every day for more Everyday AI. Thanks, y'all.